So what brew are you drinking?
Well, I'm not really like I know a lot of people have like a real favorite drink. Like I love Strawberry Yazzoo. I absolutely love Strawberry Yazzoo.
What the flipping heck's that? What's a Yazoo? Never heard of that.
Like the strawberry milk, I love it. Strawberry milkshake.
Yeah.
We didn't have any strawberry recorder again. I couldn't find it, so we've just got some like little French beers from Lidl.
Oh, nice one.
Lockdown it's not great because I'm not a big drinker, but I'm drinking more now, so I'm putting weight on. And my girlfriend's a brilliant cook as well, so that doesn't help. So I need to sort this out.
I know your pain, mate. Mine is exactly the same. She knows how to cook properly, and a couple of beers a day gets that belly on, doesn't it? When you hit 40, oh my word.
Yeah, and like so, she'll come in and be a big plate of food, big portions, and it's so good. I never ever want to like kind of leave any of it. And then she's always going out with treats and stuff like that. And with lockdown, because of not being able to get out, work and stuff, because I think like everybody else, probably sort of end of the day, it's I'll have a couple of beers because you're in during the day. You go to the shop and think, go on, I'll get some beers in the evening. Yeah. And it's just, you find yourself like, I'm having beers every night now. I'm not going to complain. I'm in a fortunate position. I've got a brilliant girlfriend who's a brilliant cook who loves cooking for me. So it could be an awful lot worse. It's certainly not something I'm going to moan about.
So do you want to, we'll kick it off then. Do you want to give us a bit of an intro to you, just see where we go from there?
Yeah, sure. So I'm David Diley, based in the UK. I'm a filmmaker and underwater cinematographer. Probably best known for working with sharks, although it can be anything from, in my professional life, I've just done a film for Natural England about seagrass. My kind of, I do a lot of production stuff, so on location, so that could be terrestrial filming, so topside, a lot of underwater stuff, obviously, but I also do a lot of post-production work as well as a colorist. So I'll do commercials for kind of major brands like Panasonic, LG, Jabra, NastyGal, people like that. So my professional work is really quite varied, and I like that. But I'm definitely best known for my work with sharks, and that's the stuff which I enjoy the most as well. So
just explain, because I have looked through your profiles and whatnot and done a bit of research, as you'd expect. But what's a colorist? I couldn't really, other than an hairstylist kind of colorist, that's the only one I know.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that same question, and even people in the film industry don't know what it is that we do. So I'm coming at it from an interesting perspective as a director of photography and cinematographer. I'm often providing the footage as well as colouring it as well. So basically, the way that we shoot for professional productions is you shoot in something called log format. So because it's all digital now, back in the olden days of film, you'd have to choose a film stock that suited time of day, that suited the look you were going for. Whereas now with digital, you can you capture all the information, and then we can do a lot of it, of work with that in post. So what we do is we shoot in what's called log format. It's very flat. There's no contrast. There's no saturation. It looks really, really just washed out, dull and lifeless. But that's what I want to receive. I want to get stuff like that, because what it does is the camera records the information. It records the data. So it records the exposure, it records all the color, it records the saturation, the white balance, all that kind of stuff. And particularly if you're shooting raw, which I do occasionally with my setup, I then get that, and it's kind of a blank canvas for me. So it's recorded all that information, but I can say, okay, well, I don't like the color of the sky, so I'm going to change the color of the sky. Or this skin tone's slightly off, I'm going to fix the skin tone. And it could be anything from just doing documentary style looks, which are a bit more real life, less stylized, to doing commercials or features where you're kind of looking at it going, right, okay, I want to make this look, everything to have a blue tint to it. And you can basically take the image apart in steps and change anything from eye color to the sky, to the trees, to the beach, to the sea, to absolutely everything. And it's something that I absolutely love doing. And I came across that when I was watching first time I ever knew what that was. It was watching the DVD release for Seven, and they have the bonus. It was the 2-disc set with the bonus features on the other disc, and they were talking about what they did with the color, and I thought, oh, that's incredible that you can do that. And that gave me an interest in it, and then I became completely obsessed with it. and it takes up about 50% of my work now is work as a colorist, and it's something that I really enjoy doing. So it's kind of like everyone knows what Photoshop is. Everyone knows what Photoshop is. It's like Photoshop for video. We don't get the same level of flexibility in what we can do. So one thing I hear a lot is, oh, can you Photoshop me? Can you make me look a bit thinner? Like, no, we can't do that. And we can't kind of do things like change your hairstyle or any of that kind of stuff. But what we can do is the bit when it comes to colour. Obviously, as a colourist, so you're doing the colour and you're creating the vibe and the mood. And the most common thing I get asked for is to take digital footage and make it look like film. And the benefit of that is you shoot digital is a lot cheaper than shooting film. So just shoot digital and I'll make it look like film. The idea is always get everything in regards to exposure right in camera, because it's just good practice. But get it all right in camera, and then that gives you more to work with in post as well, because the more you do to an image, the more that image degrades. And then you've got to fix that degradation, because there's only so much that a digital image can take before it starts to fall apart. So if you've underexposed it massively, even if you're shooting raw, you're changing the exposure on it, you're going to start introducing things like noise, compression, and all that kind of stuff, and you've got less to work with. So get it right in camera, and then you've got a whole world of opportunity for you in post. And I just love doing that kind of thing. It's just something I really enjoy doing it. I love doing that. And you can be so creative. You can make the world look better. And I like that about it. My kind of journey was a bit of an odd one. Well, I always wanted to do this for a living since being a really little kid. But then grew up in Manchester, then moved over to Yorkshire, and never been around the sea. So it was kind of, the idea was basically, right, okay, I know it's not going to happen straight from school. So what I'll do is I'll become a professional footballer. I'll play for Man United, and then I'll retire about 33, 34 with enough money to me then go do this. And then that didn't quite work out. So, right, okay, what's my next option? Love music, love playing the guitar. I'll be a rock star, retire mid-30s, get the money, and then go and do this. And I was a professional musician for 10 years. And then we did pretty well out of it. I mean, we had that whole kind of next big thing talk about us in the magazines and stuff, but we ran out of money. So it's all right, okay, I've got to get a proper job now. I was 30. How old was I when I did that? 29, I think. When we quit, I was 29. And it was like, all right, okay, well, time's running out a little bit. I need to get a proper job that's going to give me enough money to go on nice trips to sort of learn the art of filming underwater. So I did recruitment for 3 years, hated it, absolutely hated it. And then at 32, just kind of on the spot, just decided, right, I woke up, like, it was literally a case of waking up on a Monday morning, gut punch of like, it's Monday, I've got another week of this shit. Don't want to do it. Really don't want to do it. Where's life going? Kind of on my own in this flat. I was like, well, sod it. I'm just going to quit and I'm going to go and make a film. So I went in that day and quit. Wednesday was the last day. Thursday, which was the 1st of July 2010, it was, okay, right, that's it now. You've got to learn how to do everything that you need to do. I had no contacts, no money, no, like literally I had zero. There was nothing there at all. So, okay, I've got to do this on my own. And then 10 months later, I was in Fiji filming with Shark and Man, and then it just kind of like snowballed from there. So that was my kind of film school sort of thing. Like, instead of spending ages sitting in a classroom learning about Samuel Peckinpah and all the greats and like, why does this do this and why does this mean this and why should you do this and not do this? Just figure out, I know what I like. So I'm just going to go and make a film that I want to see that I don't think's being made anymore, and then we'll just figure it out afterwards. And that was literally the case, and it just happened to work. So it's kind of an unusual story. So I've been doing this now for 10 years.
You and a few others that I've interviewed, you've kind of just took the bull by the horns. I have in a different guise, and I just haven't got the balls to go from, just run of the mill, buy a house, run a business, to just go, I'm going to do something else. Especially with no money.
It's difficult. I mean, I was in a position where at the time I had no kids, I had no mortgage. I was able to do it. Now I've got more responsibilities. I've got a 6-year-old. I live with my girlfriend. She's got 2 daughters. So I'm kind of take on the responsibility for them as well. And I'm 41 years old now. So it's kind of, I had to do it then. If I'd have had kids or a kid, and if I'd have had a mortgage, it would have been a lot more difficult to just knock it on the head, because I've got a very strong sense of responsibility where, you know, if I feel like, okay, I've made a commitment to doing something, so I've got to see that commitment through. At that time, I was in a position where I could do it. And it was still a case of, I had to sell stuff. I moved out of a flat that I loved in Leeds City Centre. I had to move back in with my mum and dad at 31, 32, which was no fun. Probably even less fun for them. But I had to do that. And like social life gone, any of that kind of stuff, it's just right. If you're going to do it, you've got to do it properly. You've got to commit to it. Because my approach to it was along the lines of, I'm going to be, when I make the decision, and on that first day, I'm going to go public and tell everybody what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to go and do. And the reason for that was, in my mind, is that, right, I've gone out publicly and committed to doing it. So I have to follow it through. Because you're always going to get, oh, whatever happened to that thing you were doing? Or, oh, when's that film coming out? I would have hated to be in a position where, yeah, it didn't work out, didn't do it. Because I used to hear a lot, I was like, oh, at least, you know, if it doesn't work out, you can at least say that you tried. And I said, no, that's worse. Because I tried my best and it wasn't good enough. So it was, okay, so no, it's got to work. So I put myself in a position where I had no other choice. And I got like kind of some quite well-known names attached to it supporting me as well. I can't let them down. No. They've got their reputation as well. And it's just like, it was just a momentum that kind of kept it going.
That's good.
And that still sort of follows through today. But now the pressure's slightly different in the sense that I've got a reputation of sorts anyway for what I do, but I've also got responsibilities at home as well. And you don't want to let them down. Like my little boy looks up to me, he's, oh, you're doing this, you're diving shy like that. I don't want to ever turn around to him and go, yeah, I don't do that anymore because I wasn't good enough. So the kind of the responsibilities are a lot greater, the pressure's a lot greater, because it's also in a professional sense now. Because that first film was, I managed to get backing from Tourism Fiji, and that literally covered expenses, and that was it. Whereas now it's kind of like, it's professional. It's, here's my day rate. Here's what you're going to get in return for that. And you're paying me to do a job. So I still treat that the same way that anybody else that's in a career that they love. And it's, my approach is, I'm getting paid to do something that other people would love to do or would do for free. So it's my responsibility, not just to the client, but to myself, to do the best that I can absolutely do for them. And I think that's kind of reflected in the work that I put out, because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. And like what you were saying about the concept of diving being good for the soul, mental health, all that kind of stuff. It's like, it goes deeper than just being underwater. Pardon the pun. It goes deeper than just being underwater for me, because there's the ancillary stuff that goes with it that also gives you a sense of well-being. That also gives you a sense of achievement and things like that, which are good, which are always going to be good. So.
I came across Fernando a couple of years, 4 years ago, out in Fuerteventura. He was brought across to talk about the angel sharks that are out there. We were on a military expedition. It was my first trip away. I'd only just learnt to dive like 2 months before that, so I'd only probably had half a dozen dives. But I really took on his message that he was trying to put across, you know, about the conservation and the learning behind sharks. But that, unfortunately, down to running a business and being a dad and all the rest of it, I've just not had the opportunity, short of, you know, a couple of trips to the Red Sea and stuff, to dive with sharks, and then back to Fuerteventura, Lanzarote a few times recently. So when he said at the end, when I asked him, and hopefully I'll ask you the same if I remember, who can you put me on to that perhaps might be worth, you know, continuing that kind of conversation with, he was straight on with you. And then researching you obviously are well into your sharks and stuff, so it was kind of like, and you having a Jaws picture behind you kind of shows that that's probably got the right.
That is actually, that's not just any old Jaws picture. That's one of the original theatrical, like, kind of promotional posters signed by Steven Spielberg.
No way.
I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she did it, but my girlfriend found it for me for my 40th as one of my presents. I was just like, that is amazing. So it's awesome. Kind of pride of place on the wall. But Fernando's a great guy. He really is. I was out with him for, I think, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, something like that. Maybe 10 days, 2 weeks in Gran Canaria. We did the first ever public screening of Shark and Man at his festival, and he kind of hosted me, and he was just, the pair of him and his wife as well, they were just brilliant. Like this level of kind of energy and passion and enthusiasm for what they're doing. So hospitable, so humble, so kind and giving. He's so passionate about what he does with the angel sharks. And we went out in a few dives to find some, and I managed to film some as well, which was great. But Fernando's a great guy. He's just he's one of the genuine good guys around, like that's in this kind of world. I've got a lot of time for him. He's great.
You can see that, I think, when you look on someone's Facebook profile and you can see who they're friends with, and certainly some of them are mutual friends, and you know them as well, quite well. You can kind of see, you kind of gauge, can't you, who's probably worth bothering with, because if they aren't genuine and they aren't, a nice guy or nice girl, most people will just chin him off, won't they? Won't bother with him. But
it's a small world. It's a small, incestuous world that you've got to be. If your attitude isn't right, or you're not particularly humble, or you're not a great person to be around, like word of that spreads, because you're going to end up on a boat with one of these people at some point. And I think it's just be a decent person. Like, it's just kind of the advice that you give to anyone in any walk of life every day. It's like, don't be a dick. Just like kind of listen to people when they're speaking, take an interest. If you don't have a great deal in common, then you're not forced to spend a lot of time with them or anything, but, still be personable, still be polite. If it's a kind of a commercial thing, or if it's a work thing, always be professional and all that kind of stuff. And just, if you're a good person and you treat the people that you meet or treat the people that you're around well, then it's very unlikely that they're going to go bad-mouthing you to other people. And then they'll say, oh, yeah, I met him. He was on a dive boat with me once. Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's quite interesting. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he seems all right. Yeah. And Fernando's one of those guys that just, you can't imagine anybody coming away from a meeting with Fernando, spending time with him and saying, I don't like him. He's just a good guy.
Yeah.
Being in a band's like being in a marriage, but you're just married to 4 other people. Yeah. So it's kind of 5 opinions and 5 different opinions sometimes. But I was fortunate that they were the best friends that I've ever had. They still are the best friends that I've ever had. I was so close, we're like family. That, we'd have fallings out about track listings when we were doing EPs or albums. We'd sit for 2-3 hours arguing with each other about, no, that should be track 5. No, it should be track 6. No, it should be track 5. But you come out at the end of that, it's never personal. It's because everybody wants the best for that. And I like working in those kind of environments where everybody's pulling in the same direction. So I definitely, and I think as well, it's working for clients as well, where saying, right, I'm not in total control. I'm basically, you're giving me the responsibility to get what you want. And I quite like that as well. I do quite enjoy that responsibility, that it's a little bit of pressure, but it's the kind of pressure that I like. So I don't take anything too seriously outside of my work. So I don't take myself too seriously. I take what I do incredibly seriously, but I don't take myself that seriously.
I like that. So what came first, the chicken or the egg? You getting diving, Nick?
Yeah, diving.
You getting in the getting your camera sorted as such?
Well, for me, it was, I wanted to do what I do now when I saw a documentary called Realm of the Shark, Ron and Valerie Taylor documentary. I was 7. I was already obsessed with sharks from the age of 3 anyway. And then I saw a documentary on TV called Realm of the Shark with Ron and Valerie Taylor. And I looked at it and just thought, hang on, their job is traveling around the world having adventures with sharks, and they get paid for it. I didn't know this existed. I want to do that. I just want to go on adventures around the world and hang around with sharks. That's what I want to do. And filming them looks great, because I've always been very creatively minded. So I knew that that's what I wanted to do. From a very working class family, so I could never afford to do my open water or anything like that. And it was only when I left the band and I got a proper job that I could afford to kind of do that. And then when I turned up on my first day of the open water, it was a case of, right, okay, this is the first stage of my professional career. This is not get my open water, then maybe get my advanced, and then see what happens. It's, right, I walk through the door, sit in the back room of Dive Centre to do go through the book and do my knowledge reviews, and then go down to the pool. This is me starting my career as a professional diver. So it was always geared towards that. And I knew that as soon as I got my open water and my advanced, I knew that I was going to take a trip somewhere and I was going to take a camera with me to film that. And it was an old Sony camcorder there's a guy down in Gloucester, Berkeley, Berkeley, who used to make custom-made housings for whatever camera you had. Camcorder is a yellow tube, basically, that you'd slot the camera in. You'd put like a lamp switch into it, and you had mechanical switches, which was record and stop. And I think it might have had zoom on it. I think it did have zoom on it. Zoom and record. That was it. Yeah. So the first trip I did, take this yellow, incredibly buoyant housing. I was, okay, so I've got my advanced open water. I've gone to Egypt, so I'm gonna start filming underwater to figure out what I need to do, what looks good, to then put little videos together to then get better and better and better and better and better to the point where I'm a professional. People are paying me to travel around the world to film shark. That was always the idea. So the diving came first. Yeah. But when you talk to a lot of commercial divers, a lot of them will tell you the same thing. The diving is the commute to work. So you're not diving for the enjoyment of diving. You're diving because it's your commute to work. So I love diving. I absolutely love diving. But essentially, for me, the diving is the commute to work. Like anybody else gets the bus. It's just that my work is underwater. So I can only get underwater and do the work if I'm not a dive. So it was always a case for me of knowing that the diving was the part of it. I just happened to really enjoy diving. So it was always a case just career focused. It was always about, this is what I want to do when I'm older. Because when I was younger as a kid, my dad was an architect. He's retired now. And I think there were elements of his job that he liked, but there were elements of his job that he hated. And he went to work and he did his job because he had a family to support, a mortgage to pay, all that kind of stuff. And I looked at him sometimes if he'd be tired or he'd be a bit stressed out. So I don't want to be like that. I want to look forward to going to work. I want to, when I'm older and I've got to pay the bills, I've got to pay the rent and all this kind of stuff, I want to, when I'm doing that, be doing something I love doing that gives me the opportunity to be able to do that. So that was always forefront of my mind. So with the diving, it was, even if I didn't work as a professional diver, I'd still want to dive all the time because I love diving. But it's, I mean, I did an interview, like live thing for Scuba Diving magazine last week, maybe the week before, where I mentioned to them and said I've done over 1,500 dives, and I think I've done maybe 5 dives in the last probably 10 years that weren't training dives. I mean, 5's pushing it, maybe 3 or 4 dives that I didn't have a camera with me.
Yeah,
I
just
always
recreational dives.
So.
Just a bit of diving.
Recreational stuff as well, but a lot of my diving now, I can't remember the last time I paid to go diving. That's one of the great things about the job.
Like, we've got a mutual friend that says exactly that all the time. So you know Caroline and Nick Robertson Brown from NUPG. Yeah. So I learned underwater photography through them, through Frogfish, which is quite helpful. But because of lockdown, I've just not got a chance to get in the water with them and sort of progress. Yeah. So they taught me stuff on the kitchen table, how to take a black background photograph and so on. And then I progressed my own little bit because of the month or 2 in between the training I had. And then I even put a paddling pool in my back garden and set up a reef. So full dry suit, middle of March, checking a load of photos just to keep going with it.
Well, that's the thing. The fundamentals are the same. Like good composition is good composition on land or underwater. Proper exposure is proper exposure on land or underwater. The fundamentals are exactly the same. It's a lot more difficult to do underwater. But if you're a good diver and you're solid, you've got your skill set, you know that you're good at what you do, and you're not going to be doing anything daft when you're diving, then you've got to just get the camera stuff up to speed, whereby you can multitask and do both at the same time without the camera being in your hands being detrimental to your diving and your safety, and without the diving being detrimental to your photographs or your video. If you do both well, because the fundamentals stay the same, it's always going to be the same. Good diving is good diving. So good pre-planning, advanced planning, just good buoyancy, safety, being aware of what's around you, all of that kind of stuff. That is always going to be the same. Nothing's ever going to change that. And when you've got a camera in your hands, nothing's ever going to change that. It's just it's more difficult underwater. So you can still practice the basics and the fundamentals in your back garden, in your bedroom, anything like that. So I'm a big believer in that. And it's the technical side of it and the fundamentals come first. And then you start looking at the creative side of it, the storytelling side of it. And you can storytell with one image, with a still image. It's easier to tell stories with the moving image than it is with still images, but it's also a lot more difficult you've got a lot more to do to capture sequences in video than you do with one still image, because you have one frame. Whereas we got to get 25 or 24 or 29 or 30 or 50 frames to get 1 second. So there's elements that are easier with photography than with video, and there's elements that benefits that you've got to video than you have to photography. So it's just good quality content is good quality content, regardless of where you've got it.
So with what you said there, you know, so you don't get too tax fixated. Maybe you don't stay too long, you don't go too deep, or you don't wander into somewhere that's potentially dangerous. Do you have like a safety diver with you? Or do you dive alone quite a lot?
HSE guidelines dictate that we have to have a safety diver with us, at least one safety diver. If it's just me filming, I'll have a safety diver with me, which is good practice. And it's good to have somebody there, because even though you could be incredibly experienced, but there's always something that could go wrong. Sometimes I'll do jobs whereby it's very, very rare that I'll do this, but sometimes I'll go on a job where I'm hosted by a destination. So I'm not essentially being paid to do it. So it's not a commercial dive, but I'm there being hosted, being given the opportunity to go out and do whatever I want, basically. Sometimes there I will dive on my own, and I like diving on my own. But it's always a better idea to have somebody with you, as you know, because things can go wrong. A little problem can become a very big problem very quickly underwater. Yeah. So it's when you have a safety diver on a commercial job, they're a good diver. They know what's expected of them. You'll do the briefing beforehand. They know that they don't need to mother you underwater. They're not constantly that kind of thing. They kind of leave you alone. They're there on the understanding that you're both experienced, good commercial divers. They're there in the event something goes wrong. So you have to take that responsibility on yourself, that you don't just think, okay, well, he's there, so I can just do whatever I want. I don't need to think about myself. You're still thinking about yourself, but you're both in that position whereby I can help him and he can help me if needs be. So it never really kind of impinges on what you're doing. Plus, they can come in handy with lighting and stuff like that as well. So it's and plus it's just good to have somebody there with you at all times, because you don't want people do take risks, and people try and cut corners when it comes to commercial underwater videography, cinematography. They do, and even big TV channels will try and cut corners with it just to save a few quid on the budget. Not worth it. So I'm fortunate that, you know, I will always say to people, they never get, you know, we don't do things on the cheap, we do things properly. You either want it done properly, we'll do it for you. If you want it on the cheap and put anybody's life at risk, then we're not going to do it. We're not going to do that. And unfortunately, I generally tend to deal with people that don't think that way. That they understand that you're sending people into potentially hazardous environment, and you do it properly.
I'm unfortunate, I think, with the business I run, that people do want the cheapest job. I do like property maintenance and pest control, and I had someone arguing about a wasp nest in a loft a couple of days ago. The difference of about 11 quid. The main difference was I lived in the same village, in fact, around the corner from her. And I offered her guarantees, as in I could go back in a couple of days if it wasn't complete, or, you know. Whereas she had someone off the internet that was £11 cheaper, doesn't even know where he's from, just somebody on the internet. And that is different. You know, you're trying to show them how good you can be, and look at who I am and how established I am and how local I am, and, you know, how good it is to buy local, especially in these pressing times when everyone's skint. And she's, I'll come up £1. She went from 49 quid to 50. And I'm like, just go with him, because clearly you're not seeing the value. But there's no risk to my life. It's a little
bit of lack of respect as well. It's kind of what I'm always very sort of open with people, in that this is the day rate. This is what you need to have. So you need to have the bare minimum. We're going to have the supervisor, me underwater, safety diver. the guy who I take with me, Ollie, who I do all my work with, is great. He's brilliant, good diver, dependable, professional, big, strong lad. Just, I know for a fact, if I need anything, I can turn around. He's probably already done it. Like that kind of reliability and professionalism, you don't get that just going on the internet and finding someone. In terms of the end result, in terms of the care that goes into what you're actually doing, in terms of the professionalism, in terms of all of that kind of stuff, I put what I think is a very fair price on that. And if you don't want to pay that, that's absolutely fine. But don't try and negotiate me down to devalue not only what I do, but what Ollie does, what the supervisor does, what the skipper does. Because it all goes down to the fact that you want me to go out here and film. I'll use the seagrass, for example. You want me to go and film, and working for the client we did that with, they were brilliant to deal with, absolutely brilliant to deal with, because they knew what needed to be done to get them what they wanted to be done. So it's okay, you've got starting at the skipper. Does the skipper know where he's going? Is his vessel good? Is he going to be on time? Is he going to be safe? Can he handle all that kind of stuff? Yes, he was brilliant. The contractor, is he professional? Is everything above board? Is all the medicals been done? All the preparation, the pre-dap, all of that kind of stuff? Yeah, brilliant. Is the person that's doing the job that's actually going to go and capture the footage, are they reliable? Are they good at what they do? Are you going to get it in focus? Are you going to get it well exposed? You're going to get a good edit. It's delivering on what you want. Yes, hopefully that was really that. Saved everything down to okay, and that's what that's going to cost you. So we'd recommend that you don't cut corners and go somewhere else, because then I've lost count of the amount of times, and this happens a lot with my work as a colorist, where someone will come to me, they'll ask me, how much will it cost you to do a grade on this short film? And I'll tell them, so you're a little bit out of budget, we can't afford it. I say, okay, I'll try and work with you. And then you never quite meet there. It's like, it's a shame, but I understand that you don't have it in the budget. I've lost count the amount of time that they then come back to me a couple of months later. We went with someone else who was cheaper. We've got it back. It looks awful. Please, can you fix it? And it's like, yes, I will fix it for you. But you know what it's going to cost. So it ends up costing them way more than if they just got me to do it in the first place. And there's some great shooters out there. There's some reliable professional people out there. So if they don't choose me and they go with someone else and one of those guys or girls, it's like, great, they're going to do a great job for you. Now, I'd have loved to have done it, but they're going to do a great job for you. So I hope it goes well. But it's when they try and cut corners and, oh, well, there's a guy around the corner. He's advanced open water and he's got a GoPro. He can do it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, good luck with that.
What you told me that you want, you're not going to get it. But that's
I love it when they try and barter with you. So you go in at a price, let's just say 100 quid for a job. And they go, oh, can you not do it for a bit cheaper? I said, yeah, I can. But if you want it for 80 quid, I can give you 80 quid's worth of work.
Yeah,
you're not going to get the 100 quid. And what you want is 100 quid's worth of work. Yeah. And I think being, like you said, you do it for a reasonable amount. You're not out there to take the mick.
It goes back to my corporate experience. I didn't like the corporate world, but it taught me a lot of lessons that I still use today. And you've kind of echoed one of those there, which is when people say, okay, it's, let's say, for example, okay, the job that you want doing is going to cost 10 grand. Okay, so, all right, well, would you do it for 6? It's like, yeah, we can do it for 6. What do you want us not to do for you? What do you want to leave out? It's like, well, we don't want you to leave anything out. Okay, well, why are you offering to pay 6 grand when what you want is going to cost 10? And you've got to value yourself, because it's very difficult to negotiate up. Negotiate down is very, very easy. To negotiate up. And it's kind of having that respect for yourself and understanding the quality of the work that you do. And for me, my end goal is always going to be, it's kind of strange with underwater cinematographers. You have the top tier. So you're looking at Blue Planet. They've got the pick of whoever they want, and they will go to the same people all the time because they're so reliable. They're not going to take a risk on someone, some random person sends the BBC a CV and says, I'd love to work on Blue Planet 3. They're not going to go, yeah, we'll give you a go. They're not going to do that. For them, budget is not an issue. So they will go, right, this person's delivered on this, and this. We're going to go with them. And that is absolutely understandable. So you have that kind of top tier that do the blue chip stuff. Then you have the kind of middle tier, which I'm in. And there's a lot of us in this, incredibly, incredibly competitive. And then you have that kind of lower tier. And the difference with the lower tier and the mid tier is in the mid tier, we have got enough experience and enough of a background to say, we know what we're doing. We can do what you want to do, and it's going to cost this much. And in the lower tier, you've got the people that are going, I just want to do this for a living. Yes, I'll come and do your tourism video for free.
Yeah.
And then they kind of realize when they've done that, this has actually cost me money doing this. Because, yeah, they've put me up in the resort, but I've paid for the flights, and it's taken me all this time. And then my kit needs maintenance, so maybe I need something repairing.
Yeah.
And I have to take a taxi to the airport, and you don't kind of think about that. So it's kind of the mid-tier guys like myself. My goal is to jump up into that top tier, and it's looking at you kind of continue doing what you're doing, take a pride in what you do, value what you do, and hope that at some point someone says, okay, this guy, we can't get him to do the job. Who's good? Who knows what they're doing with sharks? David Diley knows what he's doing. Let's give him a call. He's reliable. People speak well of him. Let's get him on and give him the shot because we think he'll probably do a good job. Then you get in, you get the chance, you grasp
like
the chance, and then you're holding on to it like, don't mess up because someone's there behind you waiting to take the shot if you blow it. So it's kind of that sort of approach to it. So I'm always working towards taking that step up.
Well, let's say I'm in that lower tier, I've got a reasonable camera. Granted, it's a stills camera, but it'll do video 4K.
Yeah.
I've got a good GoPro. I don't really know what I'm doing. I enjoy being underwater. I could hold my own as a diver. I'll let other people judge whether I'm a good diver or not, but I can hold my own. And if I was to do something, like you said, whether it be for a tourist board or someone like that, or just try and make an underwater film, just to put on my YouTube channel to create interest. I know what I like to watch, and I know the kind of sound that goes well sometimes with a film to like you said before, make your hair stand up on the back of your neck or whatever. But what kind of tips would you give someone like me? I am actually asking for me here, by the way. But just to start the ball rolling, would you have a storyboard, or is that a little bit too much, or would you just suck it and see what happens? Or
well, I do underwater cinematography workshops, and the first thing. One of the first things that we do, actually no, it's not one of the first things, it's probably middle of the week, and I was always a bit nervous about how people would take to it, but they love it, is we do something called Director Day. Okay. And the idea of it is, the kind of traditional underwater workshop cinematography is, this is how to get white balance, this is how to get exposure, shoot with the sun at your back, the things like that. It's all the basic stuff that you've got to do it, whereas I kind of, the very, very first day is take everything off auto, do it manually, go and make mistakes, come back, realise why you made the mistakes, get used to doing it manually so you understand what the camera's doing and you understand what you need to change if you need to change it in a hurry. And that only comes with experience. Get used to doing that. And we did this thing called Director Day where I'll get people and put them in pairs. And usually with a group, it's people from different parts of the world. They don't know each other. And they might come in pairs to the workshop. They'll know at least one other person. Get the names, put them in a hat, split them up. Like, you don't know that person very well. You're going to get to know them very well now because you're going to come up with a little sequence you've got in mind, and person A is going to direct person B the first time round to be on camera and do what you want them to do to get the shots that you want. And then person B is going to do the same to person A. So it teaches them how to communicate topside and underwater, and how to also be on camera as well. So that's where things like storyboarding come in handy, because it's a good way of challenging yourself, because you might say, right, okay, I kind of know the basics. I want to go somewhere and capture a sequence in the Farne Islands with seals, for example. So I want to start with an establishing shot of the Farne Islands. Then I want to get some stuff on the rib. And then I want to get a wide, and then that thinking ahead and planning that stuff is really, really good practice. Because then you've got in your head, right, I need to go and shoot these specific shots. Because what you're doing is you're shooting for the edit. A lot of the time, people will have a load of footage and then they'll sit down in the edit and try and they'll either throw something together of the best shots, or if they've got a little bit more experience, they'll try and make a story. And that's a great way to learn how to plan out a shoot and decide what you're shooting underwater. Because one of the things I always do, and I've just released one now, it was a good example. The shot commercial for Panasonic in Australia last year. The majority of it was at Southwest Rocks with the sand tiger sharks. So I had in mind exactly the kind of thing that I wanted to do, the kind of mood that I wanted to create, and what I wanted to kind of deliver them at the end. So I shot an awful lot of footage. And then because of lockdown, because obviously there's less work coming in, I had loads of that footage lying around. So, right, I'm going to use the footage that I didn't use in the commercial, and I'm going to try and establish or create some kind of story out of it. So a story that I didn't shoot for, but one that I've got the footage for, and try and stick something together that gives people a basic idea of what I'm trying to say. Okay. And that's really good practice as well. But the best advice is get good on land, get good topside, understand the basics of the camera and why the camera does certain things, or why it doesn't do certain things, and then try and apply them underwater. Your first attempt, you'll probably finish it, be super proud, you'll love it, you'll put it on Facebook, your mates will tell you how great it is, you'll watch it in a year's time and go, oh God, that's awful. Yeah. Because it will always be the worst thing you do. The next time, you'll do it a bit better, because you'll see maybe gaps in what you're in the first one that you think you can improve upon. You keep doing that, they'll just get better and better and better and better and better and better. And even when you become professional, like, you never ever stop doing that. You never take for granted that it becomes like boring, like a day job. Well, I mean, for some people maybe it is, but speaking of personal experiences, you just want to go down every frame, make every frame count, be creative, try and tell a story, try and put a bit of personality into it. It's the same as anything. Practice makes perfect.
How did you make the break from being that lower tier to stepping up to, you know, one of the bigger boys on the playground, like, you know, so you've gone into the professional arena?
I think it was probably release of Shark and Man, and then my first attempt at filmmaking, and then that was actually in post-production, and then I went on a supposed holiday to see a friend of mine in Mallorca, because I was burned out. I was so burned out, and I went home to see him on holiday, and he was trying to set up an NGO in Mallorca, and he was really struggling. Like, a guy called Brad Robertson, amazing guy, Australian, lives in Mallorca with his Spanish wife, just brilliant people. And then he was trying to set up this NGO, and I just remember thinking, this is a really interesting story. This is just a guy, and it wasn't, because it was to do with stingrays initially. And I thought, well, the stingrays isn't the interesting part. The fact that it's this guy struggling against all the odds to protect a little part of his backyard, because he wants to make the world a better place for everybody else, and the detriment that's having on his personal life or his professional life, and the stress he's under, because he wants to do something good in the world. So that's a great story. So I put like a 12.5-minute film together with his permission, put it on Vimeo, just stuck it out on Facebook. I made a little film about this. Didn't think anything of it, and then it just blew up. And people really took to it. And what happened was, what I wanted to happen was that they just connected with Brad immediately. He's very charismatic. He's good on camera. He's articulate, knows what he's talking about. He cares. He's an open book. And that's what you love from people on camera. You just want to, like, interviewing people. And again, this comes from my career in recruitment. Well, career. It wasn't really a career. My bill-paying job in recruitment, when I did that, I learned how to interview people. And I learned how to unlock them and get out what's inside of them. And he would just spill it out on camera. They're very genuine, and people just connected to it. How can we help you do what you want to do? And then it just kind of blew up. And then I went over 2 years later, and I was still in post-production for Shark and Man. So I went over 2 years later, and then we did a follow-up to it, which did really well. And there's kind of going to film festivals and stuff like that. And then a Shark and Man came out. So 3 big storytelling things, which kind of really sort of hooked people. But it was, I think it was Apex gave me my first proper job, really. I approached them at the dive show. Look, I am here. This is my way of doing things. I think advertising should be done like this. It shouldn't be about the kit and what the kit can do. It should be about the lifestyle and why the kit applies to the lifestyle. Something aspirational that says, okay, you want to be a proper serious, like, diver that people look up to. Let's find one and tell his story. And then just the fact he uses your kit will make people think, okay, this is a serious guy that knows what he's doing, and he's using their kit. So it obviously must be good quality. So that was kind of the approach. And I gave them some examples of work using Array of Light, Array of Light 2, which are the films I mentioned. They came back, love it. That's what we want to do. Let's do it. We said, we won't put that out. That did really well. And it was just the case that people, I think, they turned around and said, he knows how to shoot, but he also knows how to tell stories. Yeah. And then that became more important, I think, as we went along. And then my honed the skills, I got better at what I do. If Shark and Man came out, won a few awards for that. People started talking about it. They started taking me seriously. You get to know people in the industry. You get other jobs coming in. And it was just like a snowball thing. But I think it was just the fact that it was, I never ever looked at doing something with, oh, let's just do the basic thing that everybody else does. It's always story. I want to tell stories and make people feel something. Even if it's a commercial, make them feel something.
Nick says that about his photography. You know, he does it for Scubaverse or through his own business, you know, frogfish photography. He likes to take pictures that tells a story. And I think that's an underlying thing. If you just take pictures for the sake of taking it and thinking it's going to take you somewhere, maybe it's not inspirational, that picture, or maybe it's not telling enough of a story that someone goes, what else has he done? You know, because as soon as I watched one of your videos a couple of days ago, well, after we started chatting, I watched another one and then watched another one. And I like to be sort of inspired like that, which is why I asked some of the questions I asked, because I not necessarily want to take over your job, but I like that as part of what I do diving. You know, I like having something to do when I go on a dive, a purpose to make it more worthwhile for me.
Exactly. And life is about feeling something. Life is about you feeling something or making other people feel something. And what do we all relate to? Love and sadness. You know, everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to feel love. And there's no greater feeling than somebody that you love making you feel that they love you as well. And it alters your view of the world in the same way that anger does, in the same way that sadness does. And everybody has a piece of music which reminds them of an incredibly happy time of their life, an incredibly sad time of life. And it's this, and this is something that I'm fascinated with. It's a combination with music, it's a combination of notes, it's a chord progression, it's a lyric that just takes you back somewhere, that makes you feel a certain thing. So for me, with film and video, it's how can you construct an image or a story, and part of that is using sound, it is using music that makes somebody either forget what they've been feeling during the day and just focus on what they're looking at, but more importantly, how do you stir an emotion in them? And filmmaking is manipulation. That's what it is. It's just manipulation. You are doing what you can to try and make somebody feel something. And I like to try and take people on a little bit of a journey. And there's times when people have come up to me about something, they've just said, watched the film and I was just in floods of tears. I couldn't believe it. It just really, really moved me. And that's the greatest compliment I ever had. It can be a bit of it out of focus. It can be a bit overexposed. It's not the greatest composed image, but you've constructed something which has made somebody alter how they feel. Like maybe they're having a really crappy day and they watch something that you've done and it makes them feel a little bit better.
Yeah, it's quite easy to make people laugh, isn't it? But to actually hit them heartstrings, like you said before, the hair on the back of the neck, you know, to do that is something pretty special, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not easy to do that with strangers through the internet on a screen. It's not easy to do that, and it doesn't always work. I mean, I've had reviews of a shark and it's basically there's too much of this story about this guy going on holiday to go and dive with sharks, and it's like, okay, that's fine. I don't mind if someone doesn't like it or it's not for them. I've got no problem with that. But they're reading it wrong. They're watching it and they're not getting the point. Where the idea with the film was, you can go and make a shark documentary. These are huge, big bull sharks. They live on this reef in Fiji. The reefs come back to life. Blah, 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 blah. Well, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make a film for people who don't normally watch shark documentaries. The people who watch shark documentaries are like, okay, it's got sharks in it. You'll probably like it. You can look after yourselves. I want to focus on your average working class person that wouldn't necessarily normally watch it, but let them connect with another ordinary working class person going and doing something out of the ordinary. So they can look at, it's very difficult for people. If you have a Californian guy who's in great shape, he's like, he's been diving all his life, he's come from wealth, he's been able to travel around the world, and he's giving you a message that's important about shark conservation, for example, and he's there preaching to you from a position whereby I get to travel the world, I live this great lifestyle. That Rita that works in the factory down the road, she's not going to take that message on. No. But if it's someone that's like, I'm basically exactly the same as you, this is the impact it's had on my life, I'm going on a journey, come with me and let's experience this together, that's when you get the people that count. Because it's not preaching to the converted, it's making someone that didn't care before care. And that's the difficult thing. To make people who care about something else is easy. Making people who don't care, or at least consider it and ask questions, that's the difficult bit. And that's what I found was the most common kind of feedback. That they're like, by the end of it, we wanted you to succeed in your goal. It's like, great, did my job.
Is that something that come quite naturally to you to do that? You have to work it. Like, did you re-edit it several times to get that?
It wasn't so much in the editing. We turned up. There's only 3 of us there that went as the crew. We turned up, and the initial idea was I'd written a script, and it was going to be very structured of what I was. So I'd stand there and deliver this script to camera. Oh, today we're blah 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 blah. And 2 or 3 days, it just didn't work. It wasn't me at all. And Hamish, who was there with me, I was talking to him about it, and we just said, right, let's scrap that. And he just said, just scrap that. Just be you. Just be you. Because that's what people are going to like. Are you sure? Yes. Okay. Right. Go away for half an hour, write down a load of questions. And what we're going to do every day is we're going to go to somewhere with a nice backdrop at the end of the day. And you're going to go, tell me what we did today. Okay. How did that make you feel? Why did that make you feel that way? And I just seem to be quite natural. I'm an open book. I don't like to hide things from people or put on a front or anything. I like people to kind of know who I am and what I'm about. And it just came very naturally to me on camera, and it just worked really well. So it was quite easy in the edit because it's awkward editing yourself because you kind of look at it and go, oh, that. But what you're saying counts. It's all right, okay, let's stick that in. And you've got to kind of go story. So anything that you think where, I look really cool in that, but it's got nothing to do with it, it's got to go. And it teaches you how to be selective. And I think it did come quite naturally. And I don't think that's any kind of talent or anything. I think it's just my natural personality. I like to get to know people and understand what makes them tick and be open and make people feel welcome. And I hope that comes across on camera anyway.
Yeah, I kind of struggle in front of camera. Certainly if I did a couple of fitness videos to do with diving in the garden. I thought, I looked and there was no training videos to do with diving or certainly to do with being locked down and using a bit of your dive kit to get dive fit. So I did a couple in the garden, and I can't be myself in front of that camera in the garden, knowing next door's not even listening, but he's in his garden.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
I can be in my garage, or I can talk to you here like I've known you for 20 years. Talk in front of my camera in my garage, no one's listening. Made sure my wife's gone to Aldi so she can't hear me. But as soon as I go in that garden, I'm like, whoa, got to talk quieter.
It's practice. It's just getting used to it. And like, it's very odd because you'll get people walk past you and you're talking into a camera. That is so normal now. Like now, if you look at Instagram or Facebook Live, and you'll have kind of like girls preening, like kind of doing poses and something like they don't care to like taking pictures and sending all followers. It's like that's a lot more weird to look at than just talking into a phone. It's so normal now to just talk into a phone but it's still a little bit awkward. And you kind of the worst thing you can ever say to someone is when you're recording them is go, right, just act natural, record. Nobody ever does that. It's like saying, be funny. You can't do it. As soon as that red light goes on, everybody either drops at least 10% of the normal personality or they overcompensate and add at least 10% of the personality. So someone that could be quite natural, quite good in front of the camera, becomes way over the top and irritating. Yeah. Or someone that could be great on camera, as soon as that red light goes on, their confidence dips a little bit. So they're not giving all themselves. again, it's practice. It's just getting used to it. Some people are naturally very good on it. A lot of people hate being on camera. So you kind of have to work within the limitations a little bit. I don't mind it. I'm used to it now. I don't court it. I'm not desperate to be on camera. You won't really see me doing Facebook Live videos or things like that. But it's kind of the things like sometimes you have to do it. Just do it, get on with it, take it for what it is. I think that's kind of my approach.
So with your videos, obviously they're quite shark orientated, as we've already sort of covered. Yeah. Have you done like a specific shark diving course? Sort of Fernando was talking about, he does them. That's how he got into it. He'd learned in South Africa. He went on a specific shark diving course, and he's talking and running them. Or if you didn't, how did you get so used to being? You know, I watched your videos called The Cave, isn't it? You know, you've got all those sharks just cutting around. How do you get used to that if you haven't? I don't know.
I've always, I was going to say studied sharks, and I think people overuse that word because you study sharks. Basically what you've got to do, most of what studying sharks is being in a laboratory, taking skin samples and sitting there looking at data. I've never had any interest in that. I've been interested in it, but I don't want to do it myself. I've basically always looked at what I look at is shark behaviour and try to think about things. And this is going from 4 or 5 years old, trying to figure out why sharks do certain things and where and how it can be changed and stuff like that. So I've always been fascinated with it. So having an understanding of sharks and then applying that to being in the water with sharks and seeing how your understanding of sharks applies in that scenario. And does that understanding change, or has what you thought was going to happen or what you thought would be the case, have you been proved correct? And it's just years and years of experience of being in the water with sharks and understanding what your limitations are in terms of your behaviour, but also looking at the shark, and it's trying to be 2-3 steps ahead.
Right.
And you're looking not just at the shark and what you're doing, you're looking at what the marine life is doing, what other divers are doing, what the weather's doing, what the current's doing. And the idea of like a shark diving course, it's that shark diving course, and I've thought about doing one of these myself as well, but you kind of, as long as you're being open with the person that you're running the course for, that this course is specific to this species of shark in this area. Yeah. Because you can't take, right, I'm going to teach you, I'm going to take you diving with the sand tiger sharks at Southwest Rocks, for example. Yeah. And then say, right, you just apply that to all sharks everywhere else. Yeah. You can't do it. Because you could go into the cave, like Southwest Rocks, and having plenty of experience with sharks and plenty of experience with sand tigers, looking at them going, right, they're letting me in. There's boundaries here, but they're letting me in, and I'll just gradually move up what I want to do, and I'll wait for cues from them that if I'll get an idea, if they're not happy with what I'm doing, I'll understand that they're not happy and I'll not do that anymore. Yeah. So you build it up gradually. Now, if that was a cave full of bull sharks at 30 meters, you're not going to go into it like just and backing them into a corner, like, because the cave is very, very narrow. The shots where you can see, where it's maybe only, I mean, the sharks, they're probably between 2.5 to 3.5 meters long, and they can't go the width of the cage won't accommodate their length. So it's a narrow cave, and you've got to ride them sharks. They're not going to feel backed into a corner, because if you have a shark like a bull shark, for example, or even reef sharks, grey reefs, things like that, you back them into a corner and they feel on edge and under threat. They're going to let you know about it. So a shark diving course, it would have to be applicable to this species or these species in this area underneath these circumstances. So is it a baited dive? So you'd come out at the end of it and say, right, okay, you've learned how to dive with, think of an example. Well, let's use bull sharks. You've learned how to dive with bull sharks during a baited dive under this scenario, in these conditions, at this depth in Fiji on this reef. That's what you've learned. Because you can apply some of that to your understanding of sharks elsewhere, but you can't rely that is going to be the case everywhere. For example, oceanic whitetips, what they're brilliant at is they use the sun. So because they're at the surface most of the time, so you can't apply the same behaviours to a shark that spends most of its time at the surface to a shark that spends a lot of his time at 30, 40 meters. So let's say threshers, for example.
Yeah.
The behavior is going to be different. And oceanic whitetips use the sun, whereby they'll circle, and I've been in this position so many times where they'll circle, they disappear, you can't see them, and then all of a sudden they're on top of you because they're coming out the sun because they know that you can't see. That to me blows my mind. But it's that level of intelligence that people don't assign to sharks. But that kind of behavior, you're not going to see that in a smooth hammerhead. It applies. You've got to be very selective, and it's understanding. You've got to try and be 1 or 2 steps ahead at least. The sharks, I think.
So I guess the course then, from what you said then, the course, if I was going to do a course, if that was applicable to what I wanted to do, it needs to be somewhere I'm going to be diving quite a bit. There's no point, if I'm never going to go to Fiji ever again, to go to Fiji to do a shark diving course for the sake of doing a shark diving course that I'll never return to dive with. Might as well go and do one in the Red Sea where I might dive 2 or 3 times over the next 10 years, perhaps. It's more applicable that way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you've got... I think you can learn fundamentals. You can learn basics.
Yeah.
Because it's like I tell the kids all the time. It's that when they're playing with the dogs, that he's growling at you, he's telling you, he's communicating to you that he doesn't like you doing what you're doing to him. So if you keep doing that and he continues to growl at you and he bites you, I've got no sympathy for you because you've asked for it. He's said, he's communicating to you in a way,
he's saying,
I don't
back
like
it
what
in,
you're doing, please don't do it.
Yeah.
And sharks, for the most part, will do the same thing. And there's different behaviors. Like, for example, you will hear the stat that most shark attacks, sharks will only bite once and then they'll let you go. That's not true. Great white sharks will usually bite once and let you go, but bull sharks will do not do that, or they more likely will not do that. Bull sharks will hit you again and again and again and again because they're more aggressive when it comes to that. But then you also can't assign that, a great white shark is usually one, it's going to bite you once and leave you, because there's plenty of instances of great white sharks biting once and then taking the body down and then consuming it and disappearing with it. So it's never a black and white. There's a lot more nuance to it. But usually, if you're in a situation with a shark and you have eyes on the shark and you are on the bottom or near the bottom and you've got a reef near, something like that, you can keep an eye out on things going on. You can say, right, I have an element of input into the control of this scenario. You are not in control. You are never in control. They're always going to be in control. But you have an element of input into that. So you can stack the odds in your favor and know, okay, so I did this shark dive course in Fiji with the bull sharks, the scenario that we give him, and here I am with a tiger shark at Tiger Beach. Now, you will have some kind of understanding of watching how those bull sharks move. And when they start picking up the speed, when they start kind of coming in a bit closer, when you see them moving a little bit differently. And if you see that tiger shark then at Tiger Beach doing the same, you can go, I learned on my course in Fiji that now is the time to back away a little bit. And they do communicate. Like tigers, for example, will gape. If they're not overly keen on what you're doing or you being around, they'll open the mouth and they'll push the jaw out. They will gape at you. And it's them saying, look, you keep this up.
Almost like a dog opening its jaw.
And it's every shark has its own personality as well. So it's a lot of it's common sense. Stack the odds in your favor. Learn what you can, and it always kind of surprises me when, and I've had discussions with shark scientists before in the past, and one particular shark scientist a couple of years ago who was adamant, absolutely adamant on a certain specific shark behavior. Now, this person has barely spent any time in the water with sharks. Everything has come from the lab, from data, not actually being there. And he said, no, they do this. I've seen them do it myself. No, they don't. They can't do. The data doesn't show that. I have it on video. They do this. They've done it to me. And just this kind of disconnect that you can't ever say you understand behavior unless you experience enough of that behavior to see a pattern emerge and then understand why that pattern emerges. So a course would be great, just the basics, the fundamentals, particularly safety, particularly understanding of why sharks are doing what they're doing. But it's the first lesson is always, you're not in control, they're in control.
Right. So
stack the odds in your favour.
With that sort of in mind, have you had any real close calls?
No, I've had big bull sharks coming up and bumping me from behind, like literally on my chest. I've had them coming over my head, their bellies on my head. I've had a tiger shark at Tiger Beach kind of rearing up underneath me with its mouth open when I made the entrance into the water. But again, that wasn't like a rocket. It was very kind of casual. It gave me enough chance to sort that out. I've never ever had an experience where I've come out of the water and thought that was way too close. I've had things when I've thought, okay, this isn't how I'd like this to go, and that was a little bit more than I wanted it to be. But it's very rare. But again, that comes from pre-planning. It comes from knowing what you're doing and not pushing it. Like not. I mean, it would be ridiculous to just jump into a stretch of water that you've never known, where there's specific sharks, and just go down and start putting a camera in the face because you don't know how they're going to react.
That comes down to dive planning, doesn't it? Nobody ever jumps in without knowing depth or time or gas or what's going to be under the water. If you were doing that, you could understand why people were getting hurt and injured. So I didn't expect you to say you had any close calls, to be fair, because of everything you've covered so far. You know that you've experienced.
You want to know how sharks are in a certain area. Talk to the dive centres. Talk to the fishermen. You don't need to ask scientists what they think the sharks are doing or why they're doing it. Who sees those sharks every day? The dive operations, which are diving with them every day. They're the first point of contact where they will tell you how those sharks behave. So it's kind of, you've got to take advice from people as well. You know, we have dive briefings for a reason. So listen to the briefing. Listen to people. If you've never dived the area before and you've got access to someone that's dived it a lot, listen to what they're saying to you because they're not just telling you it just for fun.
I watched one of your documentaries, your vlogs on your YouTube where you were at Shelley Beach and Lighthouse Beach. I think it's called vlog number 5. So first of all, where's vlog number 6? Because I want to see it.
I don't know. I think it's on there somewhere.
I couldn't find it, maybe. But I still find it shocking that people would surf beaches like that are just clearly a dangerous place. I mean, I understand that it's a beautiful place. It's perfect for surfing that. But that would scare the living daylights out of me. But I'd be in the water with them, no problem. It's just the fact that you can't see them so much when you're sat on that board.
Like with surfers, you can't tell them not to surf.
No.
It's a lifestyle. It's a passion that goes beyond anything. You can't tell them not to surf. And just the irony being that often what makes beaches so good for surfing makes beaches great for shark attacks at the same time because it's got a big wave. It's got the way that the bottom is composed, all that kind of stuff. For example, you can't net it. So that's why you'll find surfers will often surf unnetted beaches because they can't be netted. And then that's why you find they're getting attacked there because there's no net. Or you've got shore breaks where you've got an inlet next to it, which is helping create a certain wave there at that beach with enough regularity. But that inlet or that kind of estuary is also going to be a great place for sharks to gather. So the two are going to collide. And it's so difficult to convince a surfer not to go in the water because the chances still of being attacked by a shark is so infinitesimally small that they take that risk and they see it as a risk worth taking. I mean, if it was, okay, if you go, if you work in McDonald's and you hate working at McDonald's and there's a chance that on your way to work in McDonald's you might get mugged, you'd probably say, I can do without working at McDonald's, I'll find a different job. But that's very different to surfing, which might be, for a lot of people, the only release that they get, the only sense of pleasure that they get in their life. And you can't take that away from them. So it's kind of a lot they think about it. They do think about it, but not enough to let it put them off. I
like some of the features that the sort of local authorities or whatever are put in. You know, they've got drones up, helicopters, and then even that there's an app, wasn't there? That I forgot how you said. Was it just someone would see it and they put it on the app, or was it?
Yeah, the door.
They had what do you call it?
Dorsal, I think it's called.
Didn't they have like tags on the shark that were picked up by something? Is that how it was?
They had some of the sharks were tagged, and they also had beacons which would sense the movement by them.
Right.
So when I was in Australia, it was great. I'd just get a ping and okay, shark been seen here, and it's like okay, I'm here now. There was one here yesterday.
Get to that beach.
So I could go to where it was actually spotted, where the beacon was, and you'd see the moorings. You'd see the sensors out there. And I loved that. It was great. I just loved the fact that you could get a ping on. And there was an attack when I was out there actually as well.
Yeah.
There were 2 attacks. I think both survived. One of the guys got a serious injury on his leg, and the other one was at Kira. Kira was the day that we were there. Actually, we arrived at Kira a couple of hours after it had happened. The guy had his hand bitten, the surfer. Wow. But shark attacks is the thing I'm probably most interested in the whole world. I love it, it fascinates me. It always has. So I've got a real interest in that kind of stuff, which is why when I was in Australia, I'm going and visiting these places where there's been these attacks, because I don't know what it is. It's not really a morbidity about it. It's just a fascination of being in a position where this thing happened, that you're so interested in this unusual event, because they're still very, very unusual events.
The rare, aren't they? Like me and Fernando talked about this a little bit, is and even Nick, because they do that Sharks for Kids over in the UK, don't they? There's hundreds and hundreds of millions of sharks that we kill versus the 5 or 6 of us that they kill. So like you said, it's such a rarity. Like, what's the chance of you drowning when you next go diving? If you were worried about that, you wouldn't go, would you? The real chance is you would.
The thing is the thing with sharks, I mean, you look at mosquitoes transferring malaria, which kills millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people, shall I say. There's all these animals that kill more people than sharks, but there's just something about sharks. It's the fact that sharks are in the ocean. You can't see them. It's that every time you get to the ocean, you don't know what's below you unless you're diving. If you're swimming along, you've always got that sense of like, I can't see what's going on around here. And we just have that innate fear of it. We have that innate fear. People say that Jaws created a fear of sharks, and it didn't. It just pushed a fear of sharks inland. So, you know, when Jaws came out, people on the coast, fishing communities, they knew, the surfing communities, they knew what sharks were about. They knew. But if you're in rural Oklahoma, you might not know anything. And then you've got Jaws showing it at the local theatre. And now I know. So we just moved it inland and showed it to the world. But there's just this thing about, I just think it's one of the most iconic images in nature. I think I would say the most iconic image in nature, aside from maybe a beautiful sunset, which we all love to see, is that triangle, that dorsal fin cutting through the surface of the water. I can't think of a more iconic image in nature, because if that happens at a beach where there's people, every single human being on that beach is going to look. If you go shark, every set of eyes is going to look towards the water. If you say marlin, marlin's a really bad example because you don't really see them from the beach. You say turtle, you'll get a lot of people looking because they're interested, but I've seen turtles. Like Jaws, you stand on the beach and you yell shark. If you yell barracuda, people go, why you stand on the beach, you yell shark, you don't panic and answer for July. Everybody has that innate reaction to sharks. Just I don't know necessarily why, but it's one of the things I think that makes it so cool.
I was hoping that that's what you were showing on your vlog number 5, so the one about shark attacks, but it was the barrel that was on the surface. There's a black barrel, and you really zoomed in on your camera. You're like, can you just see that there? And for a second, it was just a triangle. Yeah. And I was like, no way has he got that video. and then you went, it's a barrel. It's a boy on the surface.
I think it's one of the boys. I think it was one of the nets.
Was it not a baited boy or something? Was it not a baited boy?
or one of the monitor ones. But they've got a pretty good smart. It was one of the drum lines. It's one of the smart drum lines. I mean, we did a dive in on a place called Amity Point, which was the scene of a horrific attack a few years ago now, where a young girl, Sarah Wiley, got killed by 3 bull sharks, and she just got torn limb from limb. The kind of thing that, and you'll get a lot of people say there's no such thing as shark attacks, and there absolutely is such a thing as shark attacks. They do occasionally pinpoint us and attack us with a view to killing us. They want you to be immobilized, and that's what happened in this instance. It was 3 bull sharks, and we went to the exact point where it happened, and this is beautiful beach, and she was maybe 50 yards offshore, And then we did a dive there the day after because we'd gone to another dive site, which was just undivable because of the cyclone. So we came back in and just thought, do you know what? Let's do a drift dive up Hamilton Point, which is the eeriest, spookiest dive I've ever done, without any shadow of a doubt. Yeah. The visibility was terrible, big current. The fish, just very, very few fish, very on edge, because that place is full of bull sharks, and you can't see them. You cannot see them, but you know they're there. And we did this drift dive, and it was just very, very spooky. But where she was, 50 yards from shore, another 50 yards back, there's the drum line. They literally we dropped in on the drum line, which still had something on the hook. So you're basically diving in a baited area with very low visibility. And it's just kind of their system of dealing with it is better than just netting everywhere, but it's still indiscriminate. It's not great. I think there has to be monitoring, like you say, with drones, with aeroplanes, things like that. Okay, shark spotted in the area, don't go in the water. If you go in the water, there's the warning. You've ignored the warning. You've got to accept that maybe you have some culpability in what happens.
We are entering their domain, aren't we? So it's kind of, like you said, you take your chance.
But we live in a generation where nobody wants to take accountability or responsibility for their behaviour. Like less and less and less people want to do that. And you have to hold your hand and say, you go in the water, you're taking a chance. Now, that doesn't mean that you should ever, and I see it online as well sometimes where you'll see in like shark advocacy groups on Facebook, stuff like that, where you'll see an attack and something's happened, and there's always a lot of people and they go, oh, well, I've got no sympathy, they shouldn't have gone in, they're doing this, like they should know, it's the shark's domain. It's like, yeah, but it's also a human being, and it's a human being that's either dead or has suffered life-altering injuries. They've got a wife, husband, kids, parents, all that kind of stuff. Like, you're forgetting that even though they took that risk, they didn't deserve what happened to them. No. And a lot of people sometimes put it across like they think they deserve it, and they don't. It's still a human being. I was having a conversation with my girlfriend today, like, nobody seems to be able to understand the nuance these days. That, yes, this person took a decision to swim in a risky area where they knew there was a risk of shark attack, and then they got attacked by sharks. Yes, they've got to accept some kind of culpability in making that decision, but that doesn't mean you then have to pile onto them and say, oh, it's your fault, you've got no one to blame but yourself, got no sympathy.
That's kind of like how I was as a kid, always in trouble, always in A&E because I bumped my head and got cuts and that, and, oh, you shouldn't have been doing that. You've like only got yourselves to blame.
I'm interested in weather and weather conditions and stuff. And I'm so used to that now with weather that you look at the forecast and go, wow, it's probably going to change.
Yeah.
And I was saying that all last week because she was panicking about her birthday. We wanted to do some nice stuff, and I just said, look, it's probably going to change. And it did. I'm just so used to looking at the weather now all the time, particularly when you're on a paid job as well, because you're getting paid. And even if you've been, say, if you've like, they budgeted, say, 3 dive days. Yeah. I always say to clients, like, however many days you think it's going to take, times it by 3. And then we can put contingency days in that, where if we go out, we charge you for it. If we don't go out, you only pay like just a reduced day rate kind of thing. Yeah. So it's always sort of letting them know, like, you can't just turn up and then expect to get what you want to get in a short, condensed period of time. I don't think I've ever done a job. Southern Egypt is, because you go for a more prolonged period of time, and it's always blue skies, never rains. You might get a bit of wind, but it's never over the top. Like, you can always pretty much guarantee. But if it's UK, then you start saying, well, you're at the mercy of the weather. So it's just kind of constantly, or like, panicking a little bit about what's the weather going to be like, what are the conditions going to be like, what's the viz going to be like, because you've got someone expecting you to go back with content for them. So it's good though. It's interesting. It helps you learn about nature as well, which I like. And nice talking to you. It's like, it's nice just to have a conversation. Yeah. So it's kind of not like someone sitting there with a list of the same questions I've been asked a million times. It's just conversation, it's a chat, and I like that.
Mega, mate. All right, well, have a good evening.
Right,
Thanks
mate.
very much.
Thanks.
Take it easy.
See you later.
Enjoyed it. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Nice one.